Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday morning. Another Coffee and Conversations here. So today, let's start off with what I'm drinking. I don't know what you guys are drinking this morning. I am having Colombian, one of my favorites, Buenos Aires from Peixoto. Here, local brew, flown in from Colombia. Roasted here locally, fresh off the roaster, 15 days old, fresh just like how I like it. Ground to the right, grind size, I would say on the finer size. And this one has apricot, honeysuckle, and cane sugar undertones. Really a nice bean. Those of you who know me know I love my coffee, love trying different things out. But these guys just get it right every time. It's really hard to switch to something else. So if you're watching, tell me what you're drinking. And let's see if I can't pin this. Boom. So today's conversation, I thought I would talk about some of the lessons that I have learned and that I have counseled my clients over the past 11 years. I have represented personally over 1,000 entrepreneurs. And when you represent over 1,000 entrepreneurs, you tend to learn a thing or two about entrepreneurship, and particularly in the early stage company or high growth company levels. And so today I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls of starting a high growth company without having the right tools in your toolkit. And this is kind of a part two to a conversation we had a few weeks ago about what I've learned working with 1,000 entrepreneurs. And so today I think we're going to talk about how to choose and why you should choose your business partners carefully. And it may sound like common sense. Well, yeah, do people just choose their business partners negligently? And the answer is yeah, sometimes. Sometimes people get into the business with partners for all of the wrong reasons. Sometimes people get into business with people because they think, oh, we get along together, why not get into business together? Other reasons people get into business with each other, there's a litany, right? I'm not going to go over all of them, but think of any number of reasons why somebody might choose somebody to get into business with each other. And usually, it's premised on all the wrong reasons. Or maybe coincidentally, they got one of those reasons right. Sometimes people get into business with each other just because they're significant others. They're married, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is you're going to help me. It's convenient. We live together. Let's just start this business." Sometimes people start businesses together because they're friends. That's the most common fact pattern I get. Or oftentimes, even with serial entrepreneurs, you are introduced to somebody, and that somebody says, "Hey, you should really talk to this person about joining your business or funding or ideas," and the conversation evolves, and before you know it, you have somebody who's going to co-invest or perhaps join your business. And when I say partner, I should be very specific. There's different forms that of a partnership, if you will. I don't mean in the legal, technical sense of business partner, but what I mean is somebody that you are jointly operating this business with. You could be shareholders in the same company. You could be members of the same LLC. You could be loosely affiliated co-venturers, or you might be partners operating as a partnership. And there are so many pitfalls to this. And I see this time and time again. And that is that people don't talk to advisors before bringing people into their business. And I would say in a year, easily, I see this issue 20 to 50 times. 20 to 50 times. People are coming to me. I represent one of the founders. Founder comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm in business with XYZ person or business entity, and we have problems. Tell me your problems." The problems are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or longer. And when I sit down with them and I analyze the issue, usually the issue could have been avoided had they done maybe a little more diligence up front about who this person is, or really questioned why they wanted to get into business with this person. And that's sort of the checklist that I want to go over with you today is a mental checklist of what you should be thinking about before you welcome somebody into your home your business home, and what you should be thinking about in terms of protections, how you as a founder or co-founder should protect yourself or your business. Hopefully that makes sense. By the way, anybody who's watching this who's in Texas, my heart goes out to you. People in Texas are suffering. It's a terrible tragedy that's happening, and we should all try and help. Anybody we know, or even if you don't know, donate to legitimate nonprofit organizations or people that are out there in Texas who really need our help. People don't have water. People are boiling snow. I mean, it's crazy. It's hard to believe it's America sometimes. Anyway, I digress. Brian, how you doing, buddy? I see Brian's laughing. No comment. No comment. No, the point of the story is people don't pick their business partners for the right reason. And when they get them in, then you have to kick them out, or you have disputes after dispute after dispute. It's such a common problem. So another reason to think about why you would go into business with somebody. Are you similar in terms of habits? Are you similar in terms of mindset? Are you similar in terms of principles? You don't have to be the same person. Good morning. You don't have to like the same thing. Sometimes we think business partners should be our sort of mini-me's, right? That you should have somebody that's exactly like you. And I would argue that you want somebody that's complementary, but you don't want somebody that's like you. You want somebody that's a different set of skills. You want somebody who is your yin to your yang kind of a thing. I think of my business partner, we're not the same personality at all. We're completely different personalities. We have different backgrounds, but we're complementary to each other. We bring different skill sets. We have different personalities that actually complement one another, and we're soundboards for each other, right? And those are the things you should be thinking about first. And of course, technical competency. Some people get into business with people, again, out of convenience, out of, yeah, I kind of like you, you're my friend, maybe we should do this together kind of a deal, without thinking about whether that person is competent as a business owner. Do they know anything about operating this business? Do they have any understandings of what needs to be done in the business? How well will you work with this person? And is there a hierarchy, frankly speaking? What if you want to be the 51% business owner? Or let's say you're the founder and you own 100% of this company. How does that conversation look when you come in? Do you just automatically say, well, I'm gratuitous, take 25%, take 30%, take 51%. How do you make that decision, right? And oftentimes, one of the biggest sources of dissonance that I see of business owners is, hey, I gave this person too much control. And I say, okay, well, let's see your governing documents. What do you think the answer is? What do you think the answer is to that question? Let's see your governing documents. Answer is, what governing documents? What documents? What agreements? Raees, was I supposed to do this in writing? And I'm talking about even sophisticated business owners. This sounds elementary. But the problem is, when you're starting a business, you're wearing so many hats. And very few people think, let me get my legal ducks in a row. Let me make sure that I am protected or my venture's protected. Very few people think like that. You need to talk to advisors early on to tell you, these are the 1, 2, 3s of how to set things up, right? Anyway, I digress. But the point is, that one of the number one sort of dissonance issues that I see is, I gave this person too much power. They're coming in, they're elbowing their way into the box, and I don't really know what to do. And that's something you have to really talk about and iron out early on, and you should document it in writing. Even if you were a 2-person show, you have a meeting, you record minutes, even if it's not required, but it's not statutorily required in your state, in your jurisdiction. I would still have it. I would say, we're holding this meeting, today's XYZ date. This is what we're agreeing upon in terms of how to operate this business. That will save you from a hell of a lot of headache down the road. So style of management is something else that people need to consider. Some people are very passive. It's not that they're not interested in the business, or they're not interested in getting up at 6 a.m. and hammering out things with you. They're just different. They have a different personality, right? We talked about this early on. What are the different factors that you should consider? Personality is one of them. Some people have a difficult personality. Some people are more passive. I myself, I'm more kind of an in-your-face type of manager, in-your-face type of partner. But I don't like to interrupt my partner. My partner does his thing. I do my thing. We meet, we talk about the goods, the bads, the evils. We make decisions together. We're not stepping on each other's toes. And so getting into business with somebody is very much like doing a dance in that sense, right? one person's kind of leading. You're not both doing something completely different. And you need to talk about those things. You need to have I don't want to use the word business plan, but you need a guiding document. You need principles. One of my favorite books, I've thrown this out there before, is Principles by Ray Dalio, right? And Ray Dalio is one of the smartest, most successful private hedge fund managers alive. And he has set forth in writing in a very, very detailed manner. His Audible is just as good, probably better than the book if you like to just listen. But I take notes on this stuff, right? And my notes are pretty detailed. And I note these principles. And I manage my law firm with those principles. And so if you have somebody who doesn't have principles in terms of how to manage, right? Who doesn't have criteria through which they make decisions, and they're just kind of seat of their pants, hard to do business with people like that. But yet I have people who come to my law firm all the time, and they're like, this is the person I brought in. And I ask them, hey, what did you see in this person as a co-founder? And usually there's kind of a chuckle. Well, I really didn't think of them as a co-founder. I really just thought they were a nice person. They were smart. Or I know this person from business school or whatever. Again, coincidentally, if it works out, that's great. Most of the time, it's not working out. Another common problem I see is somebody coming in and taking power over your organization as a co-founder. Or even, I hesitate to even use the word co-founder sometimes because that's a blurry word. What does co-founder even mean? Is it somebody that was there from the days that you were working out of the garage or basement when you're starting to build your first iteration of a product or of a concept? Or is it somebody who comes in years later? And I've heard both arguments. I've been in depositions where people swear, I'm a co-founder. I came in a year and a half after the concept was developed, but this is what I did. These are the great things I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So co-founder is a buzzword. It doesn't have it doesn't have a legal definition. It could be a variety of different things. But I think the point of the story is people who are coming aboard and going on the journey with you to build a business and to offer something compelling of value to your business. You have to sit down with these people. You have to sit down with this person, and you have to go over a legal checklist of what they're going to contribute, what you're offering. And it doesn't have to be, the first conversation doesn't have to be equity. It can be, listen, what skill set do you bring? And maybe it's obvious. Maybe their skill set is they're going to introduce you to a bunch of customers, a bunch of clients. They're going to help build revenue. Maybe they're a financial whiz. The question you should be asking yourself, even before you have the sit down with this person, is, do I need to have this person as a partner, as an equity holder in my business? That's a very deep conversation to have. I tell my clients, having a business partner is something almost deeper than having a marital partner. Why do I say that? You can start a marriage and end a marriage quite easily. When I say easily, there are assets to divide up. Sometimes there are children. Sometimes there are nasty breakups. But in business, what I found is those breakups are 10 times worse. In business, what I found is usually the assets are highly valuable and more valuable. And so you would rather spend your effort up front, similar to a marriage, in building a structure that you can disassemble. It's kind of like Legos. When you put Legos together, you don't fracture the entire set of, you don't break a Lego in half. You disassemble it in a particular way and you can put it back together in a certain way. And when you start a business, you actually have to be thinking like that. You actually have to be thinking about what are the ways in which you can launch this business, but also ratchet it back if you need to with the particular person. And so I think you have to have really a checklist that works for you in terms of what's important in business. Why do you choose this person to be with you? So going back to a common complaint that I get is this person has way too much power, Raees. I don't know how. They came in, they're a 25% owner. I made them a 25% owner. And now they're sort of making all the financial decisions. They're not listening to anything I say. They think they're the interim CFO or the CFO. And yes, I brought them in because they're financially sophisticated, but they're taking it to a whole nother level. What do I do? And the answer to what you do really depends. And I don't want to get too far into how you solve these problems. I want to talk about the merits of why you should choose and what is the analysis on how you choose somebody very carefully, right? But that's a common complaint. Somebody comes in, elbows their way in, takes over the management of the company. What do you do at that point? Or one of my personal favorites, you don't even talk about equity. And some of these businesses come in with, 2 or 3 or 4 people. Everybody's a founder. Or at least everybody's calling themselves a founder. So as a lawyer who's representing early stage companies, that's my worst nightmare, because I'm telling my client there's a presumption of equal ownership in most jurisdictions, right? Particularly if you've already filed, let's say you filed your LLC documents. You don't have an operating agreement. There's nothing in writing. There's no email chain or even text message chain to put together that says, hey, I'm going to be the 51% owner, and somebody else is going to be, the 30% owner, etc. There's nothing to piece together. So the presumption is that you are equal partners. Got a problem. Or when they file their documents, they file, for example, let's just take the LLC example. You file your LLC as member managed, and you have 4 members. Well, the presumption is all of you have management authority. Got a problem. Or you're manager managed, and you check the box for all of you being managers. Or in some cases, I've had people say, well, my partner is the more sophisticated one. He or she, filed the documents, and they filed it as manager managed. They didn't list me as a manager. And I'm fine with that. I trust them. No, you should not be fine with that. You should not be fine with that. Do you know the implication of not being a manager while others are managers in your own business? You don't have the legal authority to bind third parties if you're not a manager of a manager-managed LLC, right? You can't make certain decisions. You're not considered a voting member for the most part, unless you have a controlling document that says otherwise, right? So you get these hairy problems, and it's not because people are dumb. These are sophisticated business people that I've represented. Some of them serial entrepreneurs. Some of them you could say, all right, it's probably because, they were just unsophisticated and they had no idea what they're doing. Not necessarily the case, especially with access to information nowadays. People have access to all these legal documents, legal resources, but still I find they pick the wrong people to do business with, and that's what we're talking about today. So, meaningful relationships, meaningful work. That's kind of what I think about. When somebody comes to me and says, Raees, I want to pick this person as a partner. I want to add them to my business. My question back to them is, how meaningful is that relationship? Can you tell me exactly what you want out of this person or persons? Can you tell me exactly what you expect the value add to be? And if you can't answer that question in 5 minutes and with a distinct set of criteria, with a distinct set of value add points, then I think you have a problem. You should know precisely why you're bringing somebody in business. Maybe you're bringing them into business because they excel at digital marketing. And you're the concept person. You're the concept person. You build the product, you build the software, or you build the hardware, or you know how to manage that process. But you need somebody who knows the technical aspects of digital marketing, of SEO. And I have an interesting story about this as well. I had a conversation about, 2 months ago or so with a founder of a company, very successful company. Dude brought in a team, actually, and the team was run by his partner. And his partner, we'll call his partner Rob. My client, will just call him Jeff. And so Jeff's telling Rob, listen, Rob, we've been at this marketing campaign for over a year and a half. We're spending $5-6K a month. We've ramped up to now $10,000 of spend a month. What are we getting out of it? And they break the numbers down and they're looking at return on investment. And with SEO, particularly digital ad marketing, it's a numbers game. You can tell. You can look at a campaign and you can say exactly what's working and what's not working a few months into the campaign. Anyway, my client, Jeff, knows the business well in terms of the product or the service. He doesn't know marketing very well. And so he's completely trusted Rob in his role as marketing lead. A year and a half into the business, things are going well. But a year and a half into the business, he later discovers that Rob, in fact, has a profit-making scheme because he actually runs a marketing company on the side. Think about that. Your partner is operating a business within a business, meaning he's running the marketing show, but he's generating a profit center from that marketing show. Is that something that should have been disclosed? Absolutely. The way Rob looks at it is, hey man, you know I was good at marketing. We don't have anything that says we're exclusive with each other, right? There's no ring on this finger, so to speak. And so you just had me run marketing and do sales. I'm doing a damn good job of it. I'm keeping our spend down. So what if I'm making $2,000-$3,000 a month off of this? You never said we couldn't. And so Jeff's talking to me like, Raees, is this even allowed? And now we have to analyze the situation. What kind of business are there? There's no, agreements in place, right? There's no operating agreement. There's no partnership agreement. There's no emails back and forth saying you can and can't do X, Y, Z. So what is it that you can do at that point to ratchet that relationship back? And I'll talk about that in a minute, but I wanted to raise the issue because it's a common problem. And if it's not marketing, it's something else. It's doctors running a practice. I've had this problem. I represent a lot of medical professionals, and I always ask, why are you bringing this doctor in or this nurse in or PA or whomever into the business? Tell me distinctly what value add they're offering, right? What is their value to the partnership? And sometimes I get this weird, I thought it would be a good idea because, and sometimes the answer is, just hire this person as a full-time employee or hire this person as a consultant. You don't need to bring that person in as an equity holder necessarily, or maybe you make them as an advisor and you give them a vesting interest in your business. And that's one of the most underutilized tools, is give somebody a vesting interest, an interest that they have to earn over time. Perhaps it's a 4-year vesting, right? Or it's a 2-year vesting even. Something where they have to really they have skin in the game, but they have to perform. Underutilized legal tools. And again, I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of the legal solutions, but I still want to just talk through, the meritocracy of who you bring in and why. You should actually be interviewing people to be partners. You shouldn't just bring somebody in on a whim. If you think about it, right? Problem is we don't look at our businesses that way. For whatever reasons, the legal formalities, the business formalities tend to fall apart in business. And again, happens with sophisticated business people, happens with unsophisticated business people more. You should be interviewing. You should treat the person who is your prospective partner as an employee that you are interviewing, even though they might be a co-owner. You should be thinking about it like that. Hey, you interview me, I interview you. Let's make sure it's a right fit. Also consider whether they're a competitor of yours. Sometimes it makes sense to be in a strategic alliance with a competitor, an equity holder. Maybe you offer the same products on Amazon and they market to a different niche. You have a different niche. Maybe it makes sense to jointly, strategically talk about the marketing campaigns and have a stake in the game. Their success is your success. Nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people in the affiliate world that do these things. Anyway, I think there's a disparity most of the time when I see this problem of people choosing partners wrong. Incorrectly. There is a disparity in power or knowledge, and that disparity in power or knowledge is used against the co-founder. And sometimes it's age and sophistication, right? I have plenty of successful entrepreneurs that are in their mid-20s or early 30s, and they get introduced to somebody who's maybe in their 40s or 50s or older, and that person comes in sort of elbowing their way in like, hey, listen, you're cute, but I'm going to run the boat. I'm flying this ship, or I'm flying this plane, kind of a thing, right? Like, you take a back seat. I'm running the show. You're trusting me to come in and do these things. And I have clients that this happens for 2 or 3 years, and they don't even realize that they gave up the power. And sometimes it's not even a formal giving up of power. It's just the person's running the show, Raees. What do I do? And I hate this person now. I hate this person because this business was my child. They came in, and now they're the bully. Common problem. So how do you prevent? Let's talk for a few minutes about how you prevent these kinds of things from happening. We've talked a lot about what the problems are. What are some of the considerations when choosing a partner, right? Treat them like an employee interviewing for the position. Make a checklist before you approach somebody to be a partner. Make a checklist. Maybe you do it with them. What's the value add that you're bringing? Where is it that I tend to focus? Maybe it's 2 or 3 other people that are joining you. What are the equity splits? Why? Ask why. Be deliberate. Everything in business is very, very deliberate. It's very calculated. It should be, at least. It shouldn't be a default that we just did this because we did this. It should always be deliberate. Those are the things that you do up front. Now, what do you do when you have problems? Well, the problems the solutions to the problems tend to be complicated. Why do they tend to be complicated? You have a business that's generating money, or at least it's been on the rails to make money. You have people that have invested cash, invested time. You have people that believe they are co-founders. You have perhaps legal implications relating to how the business has been operated in the absence of legal documents. Sometimes you have legal documents. They're just not good legal documents, or they don't go far enough. They don't explain the nuances of the relationship, and no one's talked to an advisor in years or ever. So we usually come in, I will look at the situation. I'll look at what is the governing law. Is it Delaware where you formed your company? Is it Arizona where you operate? Is it, internal affairs are typically governed by the jurisdiction in which you formed your company. So if you're a Delaware company, we're looking at Delaware law for internal affairs, what we call the internal operations and management of the company. So we look at the appropriate jurisdiction and we determine what are the presumptions in the absence of an agreement. How does this business need to run? In Arizona, for example, if you're an LLC, if you filed your LLC paperwork in Arizona and you don't have an operating agreement, there are still some duties that fix into those parties, into the members of the LLC. There are certain fiduciary duties. Our LLC statute was just amended last year. So what are those fiduciary duties? So we do an analysis. Can this person do XYZ actions, right? We look at the obligations, the default obligations under the statute to determine whether that partner or partners can do what they're doing, whether they're allowed to. Then comes the fun part. The fun part is, how do we resolve the issue? Do we sue your partner? Do we have a conversation? Do we send angry letters back and forth to try to dissect what is going on and offer some kind of explanation? How do we then approach the problem solving the problem of having a bad business partner? Do we go nuclear? And this is where it's sticky, because most often my client, who's a founder, doesn't want to nuke the whole company, right? They want to dissect it a little bit. They want to carefully remove their partner from the business or ratchet back their obligations. And sometimes the best way to do that is to say, hey, look, I have counsel. I make an introduction through a letter. Sometimes the business is the relationship has fallen apart so badly that, they can't even talk to each other or be in the same room, unfortunately. And in those situations, it makes perfect sense that I would make an introduction to the partner via a demand letter or a letter, explain who I am, set forth the reasons why I've been retained, request that they get their own independent counsel, because I will not represent two partners in a business, and start chiseling away at the issues. And this is why picking your partners up front carefully and putting that time in is so, so important, because now sometimes you have to actually force people to do things through litigation. That's never fun unless you're the lawyer. That's never a quick and easy fix. It tends to be costly, and it tends to leave people dissatisfied, meaning sometimes you have to compromise and you have to negotiate something that you wouldn't have otherwise given up. And so as a lawyer, our job is to say, listen, client, before you make this mistake again, always consult with me before you put the building blocks of your business together, right? Always talk to me, or at least let me give you advice on how to structure things, how to make it, how to protect you, right? Our job is to operate in our client's best interest. And you can't do that if clients don't talk to you to begin with. And again, sometimes it's not client's fault. They're just busy building their business. But anyway, what other legal solutions do you have, right? If you're dealing with an unruly business partner, what do you do? And sometimes it's not too late to sit down and say, hey, we have an operating agreement. And I tell my client, listen, you need to strategically just elbow your partner and tell your partner that you need to revisit your partnership document. Or if you're a corporation, your shareholder agreement or bylaws. And we need to draft those co-founder agreements or, refine them. And that's actually a great practice. I think every year, an early stage company should revisit their corporate documents and should actually speak with a professional and say, can you review this? And I understand you can't represent, both of us, but maybe you represent the company and you say, have we met the best practices for our corporate documents? People who tend to do that, to be more on the offensive, proactive in visiting or revisiting their business partnership agreements, tend to do much better. They tend to have less disputes. And if there's disputes, they get ironed out very quickly. I have clients that are, $100 million company plus in value, and partners can't even look at each other. They can't sit in the same room. They can't talk to each other. And don't let it get to that point. Don't let it get to that point. And everybody wants to be at the point where they're a successful entrepreneur. But being a successful entrepreneur means you have a team of people behind you. Even if you are a single person and you are a founder or a co-founder, you still have a team of people behind you. Many people don't realize that. They want to do everything themselves, or they like the idea. They like the idea of doing everything themselves, right? Doesn't work like that in business. Doesn't work like that. Particularly doesn't work like that if you have partners. Now imagine you're trying to grow your company. How do you find the right partners to grow the company? Do you take outside capital? Do you raise capital from within? That's raising capital is a whole different conversation on its own. But the point and the question is, are you deliberate? Are you being careful at who you invite in? Don't just take the first $1 million that somebody throws at you. Ask why. Sometimes it's better to bootstrap and not take investment, right? Sometimes it's better not to. I think that personally, some people get a little egotistical. That maybe I've created a business. I'm smart enough to run it on my own. I'm smart enough to have my own partners and pick who I want and put the documents together myself. I would caution you. Legal documents are not for the faint of heart. Where can I get your tiramisu, dude? Yeah, I have no idea who that person was. But that's okay. There's haters everywhere. And that's why we do what we do, right? We do it for the haters. And the fan club. All good. I hope that guy goes and does what he does on a Sunday morning for his routine or her routine. No idea who this person is. Anyway, I digress. Make a checklist, right? Just to recap a little bit of what we talked about. Make a checklist of what's important to you as a founder or co-founder. Make a list. These are the things that are important to me as a business. I need to have a strong brand. Who's going to help me do that? I know nothing about branding. I need somebody who can teach me about branding. And before you hire that person, before you make them a partner, consider whether they can be an employee or a contracted person. I've seen, this is another common mistake I haven't said yet. People tend to think, well, this is going to cost me $1,000. I don't have $1,000, so I'd rather just give this person equity. And my response is, go borrow $1,000. Go to a bank, get a credit card, go to mom, go to dad, go to brother, go to sister, and say, please loan me $1,000. I will pay you back, right? I will pay you back in however long it takes. Do not make people partners in your business simply because they have something of value that you can't afford at the moment. Not always. Sometimes it makes sense. Most of the time it doesn't, because you're solving a problem that's very distinct, an acute problem, when money can typically solve an immediate problem. And again, depending on the scale, if you need $20 million, you probably need to raise money. But the point of my story is I've seen these mistakes where early stage, people are inviting equity holders in for something that they could easily have borrowed the money to pay somebody to do. There's no long-term value there. You always need to have partners who are long-term value adds, right? Think of it this way. If you solve the problem that this person's going to offer you tomorrow, why else would they be in your business? Great question. If you can solve the problem that you are bringing this person into your business for, if you solve that in a month or in a year, what else is it that this person's going to offer you? And sometimes, again, access to a marketplace is a wonderful reason why you bring somebody in. It's hard to put value to a skill set like that. Think about that, okay? Those are some of the things that I like to kind of think about. I've had other people come to me and say, hey, look, this person's doing exactly what I want. I have the money. Why don't I just go in and offer them money and buy my way into the business? And I might say, maybe that's a great idea. Maybe it's a great idea. We need to look at carefully what are the considerations. Usually that's not the case unless you represent a fund or an investor. Usually you're representing people who are in the grassroots and starting and building up. Another common problem I see is, hey, This person has a technology, or this person's a tech person. I'm a marketing person. It's the inverse of what we talked about earlier, right? This person's a hardcore technician. I don't have the technical know-how. I want a partner who's a hardcore technician on whatever technical aspect. It's manufacturing, it's law. Maybe you're not the practitioner, or you're starting a restaurant and you don't know how to run a restaurant. Maybe you're a chef. Go back to the same principle. What is the value add? Can you solve that value add by simply paying that person? Or is there long-term value proposition that this person is going to offer before you welcome them in as a partner in your business? In certain situations, I have seen the chef bring in, just to use this as an example, chef bring in a sophisticated restaurateur operator, and the chef loses complete control of everything. Now the chef is just cooking what the restaurateur wants, even though they're equal partners. How do you solve that problem? Well, I think you made a mistake. First of all, what was the mistake? You didn't transcribe. You didn't memorialize the understanding that you should have memorialized. Or maybe you didn't even have an understanding about who does what from day one. Again, even if you can't afford to hire a lawyer, you could probably afford an hour with a lawyer. Sit down and at least ask the question, what do I need to do? What should we have? What is my building block set look? What does my toolbox look like? And we'll come back to you, Mr. or Mrs. Lawyer, in a month from now when we have a little more money. What's wrong? What's the shame in that? Sometimes people rely on these ready-made legal documents. I'm not knocking any ready-made instant legal document prep. The thing is, there's some merits to talking to somebody who knows the industry, talking to a lawyer who's done this 100 times or 1,000 times, and say, what are the holes that you see? We need your advice. Be an advisor. Tell us, what do we need to do? It just doesn't happen frequently enough. Some people do. Some people shock me. Hey, we're looking to partner. We're looking to build together. Please tell us as a company what we need. And I'll give them the spiel. I represent one of you, usually the person that reached out to me, or I represent the company. I don't represent both of you. I can tell you what's in the best interest of the company, but I can't help you negotiate against each other if I represent the company, right? So you do the ethics, the conflict check kind of thing. You make sure that you're not conflicted as a lawyer. Plenty of instances of that happening where people partner with their lawyers in business, and that's a whole different story. Anyway, I think it was a really interesting, this is kind of a never-ending, evolving sort of concept of what I've learned after representing over 1,000 entrepreneurs during my 11 years or so of practicing law with early-stage companies and internet and tech companies. And I've seen it all. I've seen minority partners come in and kick out majority partners. I've seen co-founders lose control of their company. I've seen founders get booted out of their company. I've seen completely agree with you. Many experienced small business, medium owners lose control this way. Yeah, I totally agree. It's scary. I mean, when a client comes to you at the cusp of getting booted out of their company, I've had cases where client feels that it's something's happening and knows they're going to get sued, even if they didn't do anything wrong. There's almost a manufacturing of a narrative to squeeze that partner out. And sometimes, again, I'm talking about co-founders. Maybe they've been diluted a little bit. But as a result of litigation, we find ourselves now on the responsive end where we have to, file an answer. We have to appear in court. We have to ask for emergency hearings. It's a nightmare. So you have to have this conversation. It's not about being just smart. It's not about the fact that you might be a talented, technician in what you do. It's about talking to advisors. And the best entrepreneurs in the world have great advisors, right? And I think that's one of the key takeaways from today's conversation is, look, choosing your business partners carefully is something that you need to seek advice with before you actually engage in that process. And even if you've engaged in the process, before you cement your decision, good to talk to counselors, good to talk to an attorney or two, good to protect your business, make sure your ducks are in a row. I'll throw one other example out there where founder of a concept comes in, doesn't formalize the business, doesn't formalize the agreements, retains this person to do some creatives, film, videography, artistic renditions. The entire crux of this business, which is a media/entertainment business, was the creative aspect of it. Whereas my client is the mastermind in terms of business and funding and marketing. Unfortunately, because they did not do their documents correctly and didn't formalize the relationship, client realized that despite the fact that he funded the creatives, that he did not own, ultimately, did not own what he paid for. Let me say that again. Despite the fact that he paid to have video, audio, artistic renderings created for his media company, he realized that the law views this as the artistic creator owning, which is the rule. The creator of the artistic renditions owns that intellectual property. He didn't do it in writing. He didn't have an employer-employee relationship. He didn't obtain the proper legal assignment language, in writing, signed off from this guy. So you're SOL at that point. You don't have many options. You have to now come to some sort of understanding. You have to negotiate that. Hey, let me pay you more than I paid you to create this. Or you know what, let me give you some equity. In exchange, you can assign that intellectual property to the company. That's one of the solutions. But that's a very embarrassing, very unfortunate situation to be in if you don't think about these things up front, right? There's a question. Do you believe there are enough options for a small business owner to consult with lawyers and advisors with their high fees? Talking about quality lawyers, obviously. Lawyers who can read the fine print, read between the lines, usually cost a lot. I would say this. Costing a lot is a relative term. It's a relative term. I might be expensive to somebody who has no money. But I have never had somebody say, you know what, usually let me say it this way. Usually it's a deliberate decision not to hire a particular lawyer, right? So you do your research, find out who this person is, ask if they charge for consultations. I don't believe in giving away, other than this content that we do on Instagram and other social channels that I have on LinkedIn. And, we give away a lot of free legal information, in fact, on our Instagram. But, other than that, I don't believe that lawyers should or have to or any obligation to give free advice. Sometimes they might, maybe as a courtesy. But call. And earlier I was talking about, before this question was raised, find a lawyer that you like or that has been, referred to you. Do your diligence and ask, hey, what are your fees? And if it's more than you can afford, how do you limit the scope? Maybe you just pay for a 1-hour consultation to start with and say, I would love to build a relationship with you. I've had clients do this. Here's 1 hour of your time or what you charge for a consultation. Tell me what you think. And then I would like to hire you to actually get into the documents and represent me when I can afford this down the road. Nothing wrong with that. That's a perfectly fine way to go about. What I don't recommend is you say, well, we don't really have the money, or I don't think it's a priority for me to pay, more money in legal fees. And so we're just going to do this ourselves. And, maybe next year we'll have a lawyer review it. Because what you don't understand, usually, is that before next year happens, you may have problems. And I've had this happen many, many a times. People come back to me, hey, we're sorry, we should have taken your advice. Because now we have problems. And sometimes my answer is, I can't even represent you because I gave advice to the company and you're coming to me as a solo owner, adverse to your partner. And while I could probably do it with the right waivers, I'm not comfortable with that and I have to turn them away. So other times it's way more, in multiples expensive to solve the problem. So when you say high fees or expensive, it's relative. It's just all relative. I know plenty of people that do really, really well, professionals. I'm talking about other lawyers, other, medical doctors who come to me and who understand the value of the knowledge or the experience. And they'll sometimes say, wow, we prefer working with you and you are actually much cheaper than the other option down the street. Or sometimes I'm more expensive, but they understand the value. Is there a reason why you pay? So you kind of have to think about it. I like that question. It was a great question. I would say, do your diligence and make sure that you ask around if you know people or have friends who have used that particular lawyer or law firm, and see what they think. Yeah, my pleasure. Appreciate the time answering my question. I'm a young budding law student from India, and I've been following your page for some time now. Awesome. Yeah, tell us what kind of content you like and if this is helpful. And what you'd like to see more of, and we're happy to do that sort of content. But anyway, I think in terms of just wrapping up, I would say, to just recap what we've talked about, choosing your business partners is a deliberate process. It applies to everybody. It applies to lawyers who are building a law firm. It applies to doctors who are building a medical practice. It applies to artists who are collaborating with one another to build a co-created or co-invented product or service. It applies to software engineers who are building a software company. It applies to everybody, regardless of the industry or business. You need to make sure that you're deliberate in who you're bringing into your business. You need to have a checklist of value points, meaning why is it that you use that particular person or would like to work with that particular person. Have a purpose behind that. Then talk about the planning aspects of it. How much in equity should I be offering this person? And if you have no idea what you're doing, talk to a professional. And most people, while they understand the intricacies of while they understand the concept, they don't understand the intricacies of how that translates into the legal aspects of setting up the business. What documents, what terms you need. Some of the stuff has to be negotiated. It has to be thought through very carefully. And it's always, moral of this story, it's always, always, always less expensive to do it right the first way than it is to come back a month or years later and try to fix it. Sometimes you can't even fix it because you've been kicked out of your company or you've been sued. You can't even afford a defense and you have to succumb to whatever demands are being made on you. And that's not a good position to be in if you are the co-founder of a company, right? So anyway, it was great rapping with you guys. Send me your questions if you have questions about anything you heard today. If you have anything that you want to know more about, send us a message. If you're watching this offline or a non-live version, you can reach us, RM Warner Law, right here on this page. Or if you're listening to this audio, you can find us at rmwarnerlaw.com. Send us a contact us inquiry, and we're happy to answer your questions. Until next time, enjoy your coffee. Talk to you guys later.